Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Jersey Boy Sports Talk. We're here with a California boy right here. Nick Bogatis, CB Garrett, and Jake Liker filling in for Snowball tonight. How you doing out there, Jake?
I'm doing good. I'm definitely not a snowball. I don't really know what a snowball is. It's sort of an enigma out here on the West Coast. But I am glad to be an honorary Jersey boy. My mom is from Jersey, so a shout out to Monmouth County, Howell specifically. I do have some Jersey in my blood.
All right. It's about, 5 o'clock out there?
5:15.
All right. So, always appreciate Jake on our show. CB, how you doing? We know you might have had another concussion, but...
Yeah, we're feeling better. It was deflating, but we're doing good, so ready to go.
And I'm coming down with a cold, so we're doing great here, obviously.
Bulls are already up 3-0, so that's always good news.
Cold?
Of course, obviously, the LA native here does not know what the cold is.
63 degrees.
It's December out here. We're freezing our butts off. Jake's over there relaxing in LA. As always, phone number for tonight is 862-400-6461. Call in with any questions. Text in with any questions. And as always, like us on Facebook, Jersey Boy Sports Talk with Nick Bogatis, CB Garrett, and Matt Stolboff. And follow us on Twitter at JB Sports Talk. So, obviously, a lot going on this past week in sports. But something that was a little bit bigger than sports, I would say, was, obviously we had the whole Ferguson situation. And we're not going to get too much into the politics and the actual court case. But the Rams chose to make a statement, specifically I think it was the wide receiver core, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Stedman Bailey, Kenny Britt, all those guys came out of the tunnel with the hands up, don't shoot gesture, and the St. Louis Police Department took offense to this. They released a statement, which, Jake, you pointed this out on Twitter. It was absolutely childish, some of the words that were used.
It was sassy, I believe was the words I used. The words that the St. Louis Police Department used was, quote, offensive. I'm not sure if it was inflammatory or defamatory. I'm not a doctor, nor am I an English expert, but I believe it was defamatory.
Yeah, so they were incredibly immature about it. Then there was a report that the Rams apologized to the St. Louis Police Department, but then the Rams denied that report, and it was just a mess. So the St. Louis Police Department called on Roger Goodell to suspend or otherwise punish these players for this defamatory gesture, as they called it. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but I thought this was absolutely ridiculous. It's not like they did anything to harm the team or harm the team's image, because this is a stance a lot of people are taking. Now, I'm not picking sides here.
Yeah, I think it's best for the NFL to stay out of this. This is more of a political issue than a football issue, and I think this is something that the NFL doesn't really want to delve into. They have enough problems on their hands. Now, I'm sure they don't want the players going out there and making this statement, but this is something that they want to stay out of. They don't want to get into a racial debate, and they certainly don't want to start becoming more politicalized than they are now. And I think it was smart for the NFL to basically stay away from this, suspending these players, because it really could have led to a much bigger issue than this is now, at least in the NFL's perspective.
Yeah, I mean... go ahead, Jake.
The thing I took really the most offense to was the official statement again. They refer to a man named Rorda. He's the St. Louis Police Officers Association business manager, Jeff Rorda. In the official statement, he said that he plans to reach out to other police organizations in St. Louis and around the country to enlist their input on what the appropriate response from law enforcement should be. Rorda warned, quote, I know that there are those that will say that these players are simply exercising their First Amendment rights. Well, I've got news for people who think that way. Cops have First Amendment rights too, and we plan to exercise ours. I'd remind the NFL and their players that it is not the violent thugs burning down buildings that buy their advertisers' products. So, I I've got news for you in your official statement that's kind of out of
That's
line.
a joke.
Going out of your way to call the protesters violent thugs when they have nothing to do with this. And 3, saying that apparently law enforcement action is a form of First Amendment right expression. I'll tell you this. If that's a form of First Amendment right expression, then school shootings are a Second Amendment right expression. The entire thing is just ridiculous. There's also something called the Eighth Amendment. It's called cruel and unusual punishment. They need to stay out of this. You want to talk about people who have enough problems on their own hands? It's the SLPOA. They've got better stuff to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, granted, Roger Goodell hasn't made a whole lot of great decisions as commissioner. But by not punishing these players, you get a couple cops mad at you. Now, if you do punish these players, God only knows what's going to happen, the kind of riots that will ensue. If the NFL punishes a couple guys for putting their hands up in protest,
yeah, I
that would be
completely
mess.
agree. This could stem to a much bigger issue for the NFL if they chose to suspend or fine the players, because then all the protesters would be mad at the NFL, and you could see these protests moving on to NFL games, which is something that they really don't want to happen. They want to stay as far away from this issue, and they want to be basically based on the football product, and they don't want to have to deal with the political issues going on and all the race debates going on in the Ferguson situation.
We've seen enough illegal contact penalties. It's time to loosen up on people using their hands in whatever they want to, in this case, if it's a protest.
Yep. It's been a whole lot of trouble for the NFL this year between domestic violence, drug use. God forbid Roger Goodell has to deal with a couple guys smoking pot. And now we got this whole Ferguson issue leaking into the NFL. Now, speaking of trouble, everyone's favorite backup quarterback, Johnny Manziel, he was a little disappointed this week because Mike Pettine decided to go with Brian Hoyer this weekend instead of Johnny Manziel. Jake, was this the right move?
Well, first of all, if you aren't drunk yet, I'd like to wish a very happy birthday to Johnny Manziel, who turns 21 today, which is part of the conspiracy as a reason why Johnny Manziel may not be starting tomorrow. Because, there may be things he does tonight that could make him unfit to lead the Cleveland Browns in tomorrow's game against
Intoxicated.
the Indians.
What are you hinting at here, Jake?
Well, I'm hinting at that, turning 21 is a lot of responsibility, and they just want to give him some time to let the responsibility sink in. And absolutely no other reasons whatsoever am I implying.
But what if I told you that he actually turned 22 today?
Oh.
He told me that he turned 22 today. Then you know what? That's a really big number change. And, I think it's just a transition period that you need to allow him to use. I don't like the belated birthday gifts, to be quite honest, and I don't think Johnny wanted it either. So I think, they're doing him a favor by giving that starting job to Brian Hoyer.
Quite honestly, Johnny Manziel's been doing shots since about the 4th grade, so that's all right. I think if the Browns want to make the playoffs, which they may or may not have a shot at, they need to go with Brian Hoyer. Even if Brian Hoyer hasn't been doing that great, they're still, 7-5 with him? And when Manziel came in last week, it's not like he was great. He had 1 touchdown. I didn't see anything spectacular out of him. I think he's going to be the future of the Browns, whether that's a bright future or more likely for the Browns, it's not going to be a bright future. But Johnny just needs to wait his turn. You agree with me there, CB?
Yeah, I agree. The Browns haven't had a winning quarterback in 20 years, and then Brian Hoyer has his team at 7-5, and then also didn't lose a game last year. So the fact that you're going to take your first winning quarterback in 20 years and going to pull him after a couple bad starts is ridiculous in my opinion. They haven't been good in forever, and he has them on the fringe of playoff contention. And they have Josh Gordon back now. I think this team certainly has a chance to make the playoffs. Now, there's a very crowded. It's very crowded at the top of the AFC playoff picture to try and get the wild card positions, but with a lot of teams sitting at 7-5. But this team has a shot if they win some games. And I think with Brian Hoyer, it does the best chance to do that. You're going to bring in a rookie quarterback who hasn't played in his career to try and lead you to the playoffs for the last couple of games. It's not a very smart decision. Brian Hoyer has way more experience than Johnny Manziel. He's been in way more pressure situations. He's played in the NFL, and he's done well. And for the most part, having Josh Gordon back has been good for him. And once those two continue to connect more, and they should get Jordan Cameron back soon, this team is a good receiving. They're a threat in the passing game, and then they have Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West who've been doing well. So this offense isn't bad. Brian Hoyer just needs to be a little more careful with the ball. He's thrown a couple too many interceptions, but I think he'll get back on track and lead this team to at least a 9 or 10 win season.
Yeah, a reminder to the good folks in Cleveland. You haven't been to the playoffs in quite some time. What is it? 2001, 2003. If you have a quarterback that has given you 7 wins. Look, his play has not been the reason for 7-5. It's because of your defense. But Hoyer's proven to you that he has the ability to turn things around in a scale of just one game. We've seen his fourth quarter comebacks. Just ask the Atlanta Falcons fans what they think about Brian Hoyer turning things around. They're making a good decision by starting Hoyer here. You don't just decide to have a test run with the new quarterback in the thick of a playoff run, especially when you're a team like the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Hoyer has 7 wins this season. That's more than some Browns quarterbacks have had during their tenure with the Browns. So, this is obviously the right choice for me. But my question for you guys is, well, first of all, I don't have the Browns making the playoffs because the one wild card will definitely come out of the AFC North. It's either going to be the Steelers or the Bengals taking the division, and whoever doesn't get the wild card. And I'm thinking the other wild card is probably coming from the West. So the Browns and the Ravens probably will not make the playoffs. So if that is the case, how long does it take Johnny Manziel to become a starter with the Browns or elsewhere? Jake, I'll start with you.
Hoyer does become a free agent this summer, and if he makes the playoffs, he will be expecting big money. He saw what happened in his own state with Andy Dalton. He wants to make bank if he leads a franchise like the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. And I do not think that the front office of Cleveland is going to be willing to do that, and I think that he will be packing his bags regardless of what happens. So this is Johnny Manziel's team next year. So give Hoyer his last hurrah. Now, unless in a Disney movie like Miracle Run, Hoyer wins a Super Bowl, he's on his way out.
All right, and CB?
I think that Cleveland's not really going to want to pay Brian Hoyer a lot of money. I think they think he's an average quarterback. I don't think he's someone that you can make a franchise quarterback. Again, if he's going to lead them to the playoffs and deserve that contract that he wants, then I think it's hard to see them keep him because they already have Johnny Manziel locked up. And I think they still think he's going to be a good quarterback, and I think they want to give him a chance. I think that's evidenced by why they even put him in the game last week. I think they really do want to give him a chance to win. I just don't think that it's going to happen this year, obviously. And I think that if Hoyer leads them to the playoffs, he's going to become a free agent. And either way, even if he doesn't, I think that they're going to want to put Johnny Manziel as their starting quarterback. I think they think that Brian Hoyer is, again, an average quarterback, but doesn't really have the potential to be a franchise quarterback. And they think that Johnny Manziel can be that. So I think either way, we're not going to see Brian Hoyer signed to franchise money with the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, that's fair. And final thing on Johnny Manziel. I know we've had a small sample size, but where's his career going? And how good is he going to be?
I think it's still a little too early to tell. I think he can be a good quarterback. I don't think he'll be one of the elite quarterbacks like the Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady's of the world. I mean, he might have a couple really good seasons. He might make the Pro Bowl ones. But I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. I think he could be a franchise quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be one of the elite quarterbacks.
Yeah. I feel like he'll end up in the same position like Brian Hoyer, honestly. Jake?
I can see him. I mean, Brian Hoyer's not really anything special. Johnny Manziel has legs, and I guess all the quarterbacks have legs, but Johnny Manziel has the ability to run, and he uses that well, and I think he'll be able to use that to his advantage in the NFL. I think he's a little bit Not at this point, not quite as good of a passer as Brian Hoyer, but I think there's a point where he can become that. Brian Hoyer's not really the elite down the field passer, and with a weapon like Josh Gordon, I think it's always someone good to have. I keep bringing him up, but when you have a receiver like that, it makes a young quarterback's job so much easier.
Yeah, I was just talking career-wise, but Jake, what were you thinking?
I know it's easy for us to say Brian Hoyer is nothing special, but it's